Welcome. You've arrived in a quiet space, far from the rush of today. Let yourself settle in. Let your mind drift as we open the door to another world, a slower world, a stranger world, the ancient Roman Empire. Tonight's journey takes us behind the steamy marble walls of a place you've likely heard of, but never truly known, the Roman bathhouse. To modern ears, a bathhouse may sound like a sanctuary, a spa-like retreat of rest and refreshment. And for some, perhaps it was. But for many others, it was something else entirely. A furnace-choked workplace, a dense web of social rituals, or a stage for power, pride, and occasionally cruelty. In this story, we'll begin where few history books linger. Beneath the steam, in the shadows, where laborers stoked the fires and bore the weight of others' luxury. Then we'll rise through the marble halls of ambition and influence, tracing the path of a woman who dared to rule from behind the curtain. From there, we'll wander into the ghostly remains of Pompeii, reading the forgotten voices etched in bathroom stalls and alley walls. Finally, we'll return to the heart of elite Roman society to see how the bathhouse, that symbol of civilization, was also a theater of indulgence, control, and subtle games of status. So take a breath. Let the hum of history lull you. You don't need to remember the names. You don't need to stay awake. Just follow the rhythm of their lives and let the past wash gently over you. Segment 1. Why it sucked to be a bathhouse slave in ancient Rome. Imagine waking before the sun rises, your body already aching from the day before. The stones beneath your feet are still cool, but the air is thick, soon to be thicker. You walk past sleeping figures on straw mats, some barely stirring. The only sound is your own quiet steps as you descend into the underbelly of the bathhouse. You are a balneator, a bathhouse slave, and your day begins not with water but with fire. The hippocaust, the ancient Roman heating system, is your first task. It's an ingenious design from the top down, but from your perspective, it's a system of endless labor. Beneath the floors, you crawl through low tunnels to tend the flames, shoveling in charcoal and wood to heat the stones above. These will warm the caldarium, the hot room, but it comes at a cost. The soot clings to your skin. Your tunic sticks to your back. There is no fresh air here, only smoke and sweat. You are invisible to the guests who will later admire the warmth of the floor with a sigh of contentment. You emerge from the furnace rooms to fetch water. The cisterns are heavy. The buckets leave bruises. Sometimes the water must be hauled from nearby aqueduct reservoirs, and sometimes in lesser bathhouses it's pulled by hand from wells. The marble glistens above, but your world is built on clay, ash, and effort. And then the guests begin to arrive. One by one, they step through the vestibule in their flowing togas or thin tunics, attended by freedmen or clients. You nod. You never speak unless spoken to. Some smile. Some do not see you at all. But many bark commands. Their sandals must be removed, their oils prepared, their towels warmed. In the changing rooms, apoditeria, wealthy Romans leave their clothes behind. You are sometimes tasked with guarding them, a strange irony for someone whose own clothes are barely a rag. Theft among slaves was severely punished, but sometimes you're blamed all the same. Soon, you're handed a strigil, a curved bronze scraper. The Romans don't use soap. They rub perfumed oil onto their skin, then scrape it off to remove dirt and sweat. That task often falls to you. You bend beside a sweating back, applying the oil gently, scraping slowly as they talk to each other or say nothing at all. Some are kind, some are not. Some see this as a right. The worst days are feast days, public holidays when the bathhouses overflow with guests, noise, and disorder. You might serve hundreds. Your arms will burn, your fingers crack. Still, the fire must be kept stoked. The floors must be scrubbed, the benches wiped. The latrines, yes, the communal toilets, must be cleaned. That too often falls to you. And while the Romans are proud of their plumbing, of their sewer systems and aqueducts, the reality inside the bathhouse isn't always pristine. Drains clog, water stagnates, buckets slosh over stone, rats skitter behind walls. The smell at times settles into your skin and does not leave. There is no privacy, no rest, no reprieve until the last bather departs, and sometimes not even then. You sleep where you can, behind the furnace, near the coal pile, sometimes even in the changing room, curled under benches before the next sunrise calls you back. But still, there is rhythm in this life, a strange constancy. The fires must be lit, the water must be warm, the Romans will always bathe. And sometimes you learn to listen to the conversations that echo through the steam, the business deals, the rumors, the jokes and jabs and insults tossed like coins into the air. You learn who is rising and who is falling. You begin to understand the theater of it all. For them, it is a ritual, a spectacle of health and leisure. But for you, it is labor without end, and still the baths must shine. Now let us rise from these shadowed halls. Let the soot fall away. We step into the light of a different Roman drama. This time, not in the steam rooms, but in the palace corridors. A different kind of ambition takes root there. When you're ready, we'll follow the path of a woman who tried to shape the empire through whispered influence, maternal ambition, and careful calculation. Now imagine yourself in a quieter space, cooler, less physical. The corridors are polished, the walls adorned with frescoes and golden trim. You walk softly on marble, and each footstep echoes not just in the hall, but in history. This is the world of imperial Rome, and tonight we walk in the shadow of Agrippina the Younger. Her story is not one of brute strength or battlefield conquest. It is a tale told in glances, alliances, and the subtle turn of a phrase. In a world dominated by men, where power was wielded by generals and emperors, Agrippina used what she had: lineage, intelligence, and unrelenting ambition. She was born into privilege, but not peace. The daughter of Germanicus and Agrippina the Elder, her bloodline was among the most revered in Rome. Her brother was Caligula, her son would be Nero. She herself was descended from Augustus, but noble blood in Rome was as much a curse as a blessing. As a young girl, she watched her mother exiled, her brothers killed, and her family name dragged through political mud. These were her early lessons. That survival meant silence, patience, and, when the time came, action. She married young, as all Roman women of her class did, first to Gnaeus Domitius Ahenobarbus. He was cruel and well-connected. Their son, Lucius Domitius, would grow up to be Nero. After Caligula's rise to power, Agrippina re-entered the public eye, but not safely. She was accused of conspiring against her own brother and exiled from the court. For years she lived in quiet disgrace, her influence dimmed but not extinguished. And then Caligula was assassinated. Claudius, a relative few had taken seriously, became emperor. Agrippina saw a path back. Her second marriage was not to a lover, but to an opportunity. She persuaded Claudius, her uncle by blood, to marry her, a controversial and calculating union. The laws of Rome were bent for her, and once inside the palace, she began to maneuver. She arranged the adoption of her son, Nero, by Claudius, placing him directly in line for the throne. She commissioned statues, coins, and public works to link her son to Augustus himself. She controlled who entered the emperor's presence. Her name appeared alongside his in decrees. She wore a cloak of piety and maternal virtue, but beneath it was steel. When Claudius died, possibly poisoned, though history is careful in its language, Nero ascended the throne at 16. Agrippina stood beside him, not as a passive mother, but as a regent in all but name. For a while, she ruled through him. His coins bore her image, her advisors guided him. She sat behind the throne, always watching. But power in Rome is not easily shared. As Nero matured, he sought freedom from her influence. He listened more to his tutors, to new advisors, to his own instincts. The tension grew. Agrippina, used to shaping others, found herself increasingly isolated. Their final break came over politics and over love. Nero fell for a woman Agrippina despised. She argued, he resisted, she threatened to support another heir, and then she died. The method is murky. Ancient sources tell strange stories, that Nero tried to sink her boat, that she swam to shore, that she was later stabbed in her villa. But in truth, we cannot know the exact moment when her life ended. Only that it did, and that it sent ripples through the empire. Agrippina's rise had been spectacular, her fall slow and brutal. But even in death, she left a mark. Her life remains one of the clearest examples of a woman navigating the labyrinth of Roman power, not with sword or shield, but with silence, strategy, and patience that almost outlasted an empire. And now let us leave the palaces and the poison behind. Our next path winds into the streets of another Roman city, one that no longer breathes. Let us wander into the buried rooms of Pompeii and listen to the whispers scratched into its walls. The air feels still, almost preserved in time. Imagine yourself walking through narrow stone streets, the paving worn smooth by the feet of those long gone. The walls rise on either side of you, painted with faded reds and ochres, their plaster chipped by centuries of silence. This is Pompeii, not as it was in its final chaotic hours, but as it lives now, suspended, quiet, as if holding its breath. Beneath the volcanic ash, the city froze, but within that stillness, it left behind something remarkably alive. Its voice, or rather, the voices of its people, scratched, scrawled, scribbled onto walls, columns and doorways. Graffiti. In our world, the word suggests rebellion, expression, maybe even vandalism. But in Pompeii, graffiti was everything. Love notes, political slogans, shopping lists, crude jokes, soft laments, desperate pleas. Unlike statues or scrolls, these weren't meant to last. They weren't official records or literature for the elite. They were impulsive, messy, deeply human. And that is precisely what makes them so haunting. On one wall, someone carved, "I don't want to sell my husband, but I would like to have a better one." In another house, Celadus, the Thracian gladiator, is the delight of the girls. Outside a tavern, "We have wet the bed, I admit it. We were wrong, friend. If you ask why, there was no chamber pot." There's poetry too, rhymed verses written by amateurs, stumbling meter but honest feeling. One man writes, "Lovers, like bees, live a short time. So kiss me, and let's not waste a moment." And yet, alongside these glimpses of ordinary life, there are also clues to social unrest, sharp political insults, names scratched out, candidates mocked or praised. You see the same bitterness, the same ambition, the same weary cynicism that lingers in modern cities. Some graffiti offer directions. Turn right at the fountain to get to the house of the beautiful girl. Others give warnings. Watch out for the dog. And some, perhaps most, are entirely unfiltered. They make lewd boasts, list lovers, tally debts. They are vulgar, crude, funny, sad, all of it, left not by emperors or historians, but by the nameless. A bored shopkeeper, a lovesick baker, a tired mason. It is tempting to imagine someone pausing at twilight, fingernail or stylus in hand, pressing words into fresh plaster while the lamps flicker above. No ceremony, no audience, just the impulse to be seen, even if only by the wall itself. Perhaps the most chilling lines are those that stop mid-sentence, the ones half-carved, left unfinished. Were they interrupted? Did the ash fall before the words were done? We will never know. Pompeii is often remembered for its destruction, but its graffiti tells a different story, not of death, but of life. A life with messiness, humor, pettiness, affection, all of it preserved not in stone, but in scratches. In Pompeii, even the silent walls have something to say. Now, let us step back from this buried city, from its murmured secrets. Let the dust settle, the echoes fade. We return now to marble pillars and bustling courtyards, not for the laborers or the forgotten voices, but to the polished lives of Rome's elite. What did the bathhouse mean to them? A sanctuary? A stage? Or something more subtle and strategic? Step now into a different rhythm. No longer the scrape of slave hands or the hurried scrawl of graffiti. This world moves slower, measured, intentional. Here, sandals glide softly across polished stone. Voices are calm but calculated. And the bathhouse, once a place of sweat and soot, becomes something else entirely. For Rome's elites, bathing was not just a matter of hygiene. It was performance. It was presence. A daily ritual wrapped in politics, networking, and quiet displays of dominance. Imagine a senator arriving just before the peak hour. His toga is immaculately arranged. His slave carries oils perfumed with myrrh and cinnamon. Eyes turn as he enters, not with alarm, but with subtle interest. Who he greets, where he sits, how long he stays, all of it is noted. He doesn't come to bathe, he comes to be seen. Bathhouses like the Thermae of Caracalla or the Baths of Diocletian were enormous complexes, temples to leisure and order. They were far more than places to wash. There were libraries, lecture halls, gardens and shaded promenades. There were food vendors and poets, musicians and philosophers. A man might spend half a day there and never touch the water, but the pools, the frigidarium, tepidarium and caldarium, were still the center of gravity, and in them a strange leveling occurred. A slave might scrub the back of a consul. A freedman might sit beside a praetor. Rank was acknowledged, but nudity blurred distinctions. Status had to be reasserted not with clothes or guards, but with words, bearing, confidence. Conversations in the steam rooms were not idle. Deals were made in whispers, marriages arranged with veiled nods, old favors recalled, future favors hinted at. It was said that the bathhouse could be more dangerous than the Senate, not for swords, but for smiles. A patrician might arrive with a crowd of followers, his clients trailing behind him, laughing at the right moments, echoing his opinions. Another might arrive alone, quiet but respected. Each was performing a role in a long social play. Women too had their own bathhouses, or sometimes separate hours within the same spaces. These too became arenas of influence. A wealthy matron might sponsor poets, support political causes through her family connections, or arrange alliances through her children. Behind the mosaics and columns, reputations were built and dismantled. Gossip flowed more freely than water. And yet, there was also genuine pleasure. The moment when warm air and cool water met on skin, the low murmur of conversation blending with splashes and echoes, a kind of rhythm that soothed even as it sharpened. There were massage rooms where oils were pressed into the skin, not just for indulgence, but for health. There were games, board games, ball games, riddles, and there were quiet corners where one might simply sit and watch. For those at the top, the bathhouse offered something rare: control without confrontation, influence through intimacy. But even here, things could turn. A wrong word, an overheard jest, an old grudge rekindled. There are tales of rivals meeting in the steam room and emerging as enemies. And yet each day they returned, because to not be seen was to be forgotten. To skip the bathhouse was to invite rumors. Was he ill? Was he disgraced? Was he plotting? In Rome, presence was power. And so they came each afternoon, draped in subtle tension, smiling, conversing, competing without ever raising a voice. As you imagine them lounging on marble benches, feel the steam thicken around you. Hear the soft splash of water, the muted laugh, the measured words. The bathhouse was not just a place, It was a mirror of the empire's beauty and its burdens, its elegance and its cruelty. And now, as the echoes of that world begin to fade, let us gently step back from the marble and steam. Back through the corridors, past the fires, the mosaics, the scribbled names. Back into the stillness of now. And now, the steam has lifted. The voices have gone quiet. The fires beneath the floors have burned low. The bathhouse stands empty, its stone cool once more. You've walked its full length tonight, from the furnace chambers where slaves bent under heat to the perfumed presence of elites playing subtle games in the caldarium. You've stepped through its many roles: labor, luxury, ambition, anonymity. And along the way you paused in Pompeii. You listened to words scratched into plaster nearly 2,000 years ago. You met Agrippina, whose ambition dared to move the throne and who paid dearly for her reach. The Roman bathhouse was never just a bath. It was a crossroads of classes, of ambitions, of lives both loud and unseen. It was a monument not only to cleanliness, but to complexity. And like so much of Roman life, it held within it the contradiction of beauty and burden, elegance and effort, pleasure and power. And so, as you lie back now, perhaps already halfway to sleep, let these echoes recede. You are not stoking fires. You are not performing power. You are not scraping backs or reading rumors by torchlight. You are here, still. The marble has cooled. The whispers have stopped. Let the weight of history slip away. Let it settle softly into silence and rest.